So, how people drive in Russia? I should say honestly that I still didn't get it until now, after 6 years I'm living here, because of course in the world there's just one way of driving cars, but well, sometimes there are some specificities like you have a sign, be careful of, I don't know, maybe more deers in Wisconsin or more bears here or more rabbits in France, or I don't know. But still, the code and the law is pretty much the same everywhere in the world. But you have to know that in Russia, most of the people have bought their license. So you have maybe half of the people on the street who are driving cars and who bought it, but they still have a little bit of experience. So maybe they bought it very, very, very long ago, and that's why it's not so terrible. But the other half who bought it, it's really terrible because they really don't know how to drive. So very interesting also that even if there are the same signs everywhere and all the same laws everywhere, they still have their own interpretation. So, for example, one of the things you can see in Russia is that very often on the street, big streets, like highways, if we can say this, highways, you have two lines, two white lines on the street. So usually when you just have one, it means that you cannot go in front of the car like that. So and here I saw two very often. So I asked my ex-boyfriend and I said, well, why do you have here two lines? I said, well, just one is usually when you cannot drive by the car. And he said, well, that's true. And when you have two, it's the same thing. So I said, well, why do we need two lines when one is already obvious? And he said, well, one line is when you cannot do it, but everybody does it. And two lines, it's really you cannot do it and you shouldn't. So it was very funny. But on the other hand, everybody thinks that way here. So really, there are many, many things which are not allowed here, but still people do it. Well, it's pretty much everywhere in the world, but here it's pretty much obvious when you drive with people or people are driving around you. So the second thing is about fines. You have all the time fines in Russia. First of all, the distance and the hugeness of the country does that we drive a lot. We drive a lot. Of course, there are many flights, many trains and stuff, but still, people like just being in cars. So it's more comfortable, and you can be with friends and stuff. So and it's pretty much about the same price. So usually people like driving cars, but every, I don't know, every maybe 50 kilometers, every 100 kilometers, you have policemen who usually stop you and they make something up and tell you that you drove faster than you should, etc., etc. Of course, it's not true, but they just want money from you. It's not so big fines, but still, if you drive like 3,000 kilometers, you still have many, many fines. And afterwards, you think, well, maybe I could have flown with a, I could have got in a plane. It would be maybe not so expensive than in a car. So be careful in Russia. If of course you can argue and you can say to the policeman that you didn't do anything wrong, but usually people don't do it. First of all, because they cannot prove anything. Second of all, because there's a lot of corruption. So even if you're right and you can prove it somehow, still, if policemen know somebody or someone else know somebody else who works in the or in the government or something, it won't be very good for you. And third of all, the policemen usually do whatever they want. So if you argue, you can not just get a fine, but you can lose your license. So it's pretty a big risk. And one more thing is that usually when you go on justice, it's a very long process and it's a lot of money. So usually people don't do it. So usually people, especially Russian, they don't like to put things in the future very far away. So usually they just pay, they forget about it, and they live their life further on. So maybe we should do that way. I don't know. So be careful about lines. Be careful about the signs, which are not so often as we do And for example, Russian people that I know that go to France in order, on holidays, they usually rent a car there, and they tell me, "Well, it's not possible to drive in France. It's not possible. It's not possible." Why? Well, you have so many signs. You cannot drive, and look at the signs. Well, of course, here there are so few signs that you cannot drive at all. But still, so you just have to get used to it. I know many foreigners who live here for many years, and everything is fine. So don't be afraid of driving in Russia. You just have to get used to it like everything else in the world.